Welcome back to the Practical People Manager podcast. In this episode, I'm joined by Pete Colby, a workplace mediator, trainer, and the founder of Pragmatism, who supports organisations and individuals in managing conflict, rebuilding relationships, and having better conversations at work. This is the first part of our conversation about workplace conflict, mediation, and what managers can do when working relationships start to break down. We talk about why conflict is such a normal part of working life, but also why it can become so damaging when it's ignored, avoided, or left to escalate. It's a really practical conversation, especially if you manage people, support managers, or run a business and want to understand how to deal with conflict before it becomes formal. Let's get into part one with Pete. So Pete, welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for inviting me.
This is great. I've been waiting for this. I'm looking forward to this podcast and our conversation.
Very excited.
Which is good. So first of all, it'd be really good if you can introduce yourself to our viewers and listeners and tell us a little bit about Pragmatism UK.
So me as a person, my background, it's 40 years this year since I left school and started work.
Don't look old enough. No way.
We started at 5. So my background predominantly has been in the HR space, very much in employee relations. So mainly in the steel industry, then the food industry, and then the aerospace industry. And in the food industry, I spent about 4 or 5 years as a line manager.
Okay.
So I had up to 800 people that ultimately worked for me, and 2 million products a week, and customers like Sainsbury's, Tesco, Marks and Spencer's. So that's why this podcast is particularly of interest to me, because I've been on that side as a line manager and not just from a HR perspective. I left Rolls-Royce about 8 years ago.
Okay.
And set up Pragmatism.
Yeah.
The reason it's called Pragmatism is I just fundamentally don't believe that any policy, law, process gives you the answer when it comes to people.
Yeah.
I think managing people is the hardest part of any leadership job. And it is that pragmatic leadership, and I'm sure we'll get into that discussion. But Pragmatism as a business, we mediate disputes. So when things go really badly, we come in and mediate those disputes. But arguably more importantly, we train the skills that we use as mediators so that we avoid disputes in the first place. So I'm very much about let's avoid mediation, even because mediation needs a dispute. Yeah. And that's where leadership really comes in for me. So that's me.
Great background. Amazing, the stuff that you've done.
Yeah, well, at my age, you've done a few things.
Bless you. So, but why did you focus on mediation and workplace conflict out of all the stuff as a line manager you might have been involved in, or even within HR? Why those two aspects have you focused on in particular?
I think just purely job satisfaction.
Okay.
The buzz that you get when you get involved in situations that aren't going very well, and then you play a part in helping people to move things forward and resolve issues, and because time, cost and stress are the reasons why we always do mediation or get involved in issues. Stress by far the biggest. And some issues go on for at best months, sometimes years. We're seeing cases now being put into tribunals in 2030, 2031. And it's so much stress. But when you get involved in things and you help people to move forward, it's such a buzz. And life's too short.
No, absolutely.
It really is.
And you're right with I think I've heard more and more about grievances and tribunals than I ever have in my 25 plus years within HR. So it's something that's quite buoyant at the moment, and there's lots of conversations around it.
Yeah, and it's just getting more and more significant. What with changes in legislation, organisations with flatter structures putting more requirements on managers, legislation tightens. AI, massive impact on grievances. We're seeing grievances of several hundred pages now. And it's just awful when actually pretty much what I'll talk about on this podcast, is the importance of being able to talk.
Yeah, absolutely. So do you think there's like a common situation that kind of you can see throughout conflict, or do you think it's quite sporadic where the conflict lies?
I think it can be sporadic, but if you look at common root causes, I don't think we'll ever do a mediation where the root cause isn't sort of around leadership. And I don't mean that those leaders are bad people or incompetent or anything, but it is about that confidence to have the right conversations. So usually whatever the conflict is about, the root cause is things like trust, communication, and these small things then manifest themselves into big issues, and then people stop talking, and then they email more, and then they misread emails even more, and you don't get the tone, and the stuff, and then it just escalates into big issues. So the most common thing we hear in mediation is, I wish we'd have had this conversation. Usually years ago.
Absolutely. So if we think about then from a line manager point of view, what this is really about from my context is, there's line managers, they get promoted, they've been probably amazing at their job technically, and then you're promoted to a manager. You then have a team of 2, 3, 5, 10, 20 people, and that's the hardest part of your job, is the people aspect, isn't it?
Absolutely.
So from a line manager point of view, what would you say, or what could they look out for, kind of the early signs of a potential conflict that's kind of brewing?
Well, I suppose going back to the real nub of issues, it is about getting to know people. And usually when people are acting a little bit differently, or something's not right, and one of the problems with us as humans is we're not predictable.
Right.
So you could be very nice today, and everything seems okay, and then tomorrow you're in a different mood.
Very true.
And who knows what's happening behind the scenes or whatever. And so it is that if you don't know people in the first place, then you don't know what's what's happening, and somebody's acting differently. So it really is about those human factors. And when people are, they're coming in late, or they're going off sick or whatever, then it's started to manifest itself a bit too far, really. So the very first things are, people just don't see themselves, or they seem frustrated about something, and it's not like them. And that conversation about, you're not normally like this. Is something going on? What's the matter? How can I help? Type of things. They're the very first things. And as I say, once we get involved and everything's gone stratospheric and through grievances and everything, often people are saying, I wish you'd have just asked me that.
I think there is that human connection, isn't it? I think there's that real fear of saying something wrong. And I'm with you, where I think if you have regular check-ins with your team members, you'll understand them better, how they work, what they like, what they don't like. And I suppose in a way you adapt your style to them, don't you? And you learn more about them. But I do think managers have a fear of having like a human conversation. Like you're saying, is everything okay? You don't see them yourself, but it's something that they seem to avoid wanting to do.
So, and I'm not surprised. Because like you say, we often promote managers because of their technical capabilities, which is great and fine, kind of. But leading people is a different job. It's not the technical expert necessarily. It's the leader of the people. And it's a different job. It's a different skill set. And the real root cause of not having conversations is confidence. So when we train, so part of what we do is we train managers to have difficult conversations.
Okay.
They're only difficult because they don't have the confidence to have them. And I'm really not surprised. If I think about the HR function, great function. But what do we do with managers? First of all, we promote them into those jobs. Secondly, we don't train them in this area. Thirdly, we scare the living daylights out of them because we tell them, if you get this wrong, it's going to be you in the tribunal, it's going to be you in the dock, you're going to have to answer for this. And then we wonder why they sort of avoid these conversations that could go a little bit wrong. And when we train managers to have these conversations, we often ask the delegates, why do you avoid conversations? And they're like, well, she's a woman of a certain age and she's mentioned menopause and I'm a bloke. I'm not going there. They've got a different colour skin to me. I've heard about this discrimination thing. I'm not going there. You know, they've got mental health challenges. Ooh.
Yeah.
And the most common thing they'll say is, what if I get it wrong?
Yeah.
And it's a real genuine fear, and it's an understandable.
Yeah, 100%.
Totally understandable.
Yeah. It's interesting you say that. A couple of weeks ago, actually, I was speaking with a line manager, and a member of staff wasn't very happy about something, and they walked out. And then when they came back, they said, "You victimised me. You discriminated." And I said to the manager, "So what did you do?" And she said, "Nothing." And I said, "What do you mean?" She said, "I didn't say anything." And I said, "Why?" And she's like, "Scared. What? I don't even know how I'm meant to have that conversation."
Exactly.
And it's funny. So when we kind of I coached her through the conversation she could have had, I think ultimately it was a case of, well, I don't know what she meant by discrimination. I don't know what she meant by victimization. I said, so you could have asked her, what do you mean? Where do you feel that we've discriminated? How have we victimized you? I said, and then got into the conversation, but she just chose to avoid it because she thought that was better.
Yeah. And it's, as you know, because I know, you know, obviously you're a trained mediator, and we talk about interests rather than positions. And it's a very difficult, you know, when you get accused of that, you've victimized or you've discriminated, naturally you'll go into, no, I haven't, or, you know, tell me how I have, sort of thing. When actually it's not necessarily about victimization or discrimination from a objective perspective. It is that subjective element that's, I need to understand why. I mean, just to share a very quick example, if that's all right. I once mediated a case where a very senior manager actually had been on a coaching course, and a much more junior employee. So the senior lady was white, and the more junior person was black, and they were having a conversation because the junior employee wasn't happy about something.
Yeah.
And I think, thinking about her coaching, the more senior employee said, I can see that you're angry.
Yeah.
And the junior employee sort of basically stormed out of the meeting and said, don't you ever discriminate against me like that. And when I got involved in the mediation, you know, the more senior employee was very, very confused as to how that could be discrimination. The junior employee was very, very clear how it was discrimination.
Right.
But I was there.
Yeah.
I need to ask questions.
Yeah.
Because I need to understand.
Yeah.
It's not about whether it is discrimination or it's not.
Yeah.
But I needed to understand.
Yeah.
And I suppose because I'd got the confidence to have those conversations, it would, and she knew that I was there to help her.
Yeah.
It was a relatively easy conversation for me to have, but almost impossible for the manager to have. And when we were talking and she explained about her background and how growing up her mum had always told her, don't ever let anybody brand you as an angry black woman.
Right, okay.
The word angry was discrimination to her.
Yeah.
But they then had a really great conversation about cultural differences and everything like that. And once they'd sorted the issues out, first of all, it was like, right, okay, I understand, you know, I know you weren't discriminating. But they had a great conversation about the cultural challenges in their organisation. Yeah. And one of the outcomes of the mediation was they jointly set up a diversity and inclusion group.
Oh, amazing.
To help the whole organisation because they were both saying, we don't understand every culture. Who does?
Yeah.
But actually the conversations about cultural backgrounds, etc., is really important.
Yeah. Amazing.
But they needed the confidence to be able to have.
Yeah. God, that's such a great point, because culture, that just puts another dynamic on top of people's perception of that conversation, isn't it, really?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So,
oh, great example.
So it is about having those.
Yeah.
It's building the confidence. But that's why managers, you know, fear having those conversations.
Yeah.
And that's why, you know, HR get frustrated that managers throw issues over the fence to them.
Yeah.
but there's no surprise. If we don't develop those skills, then that's what's going to happen.
And it's true, I suppose, in my role, a lot of people do come to me with grievances and complaints because they feel, that we have the confidence, we can hold the conversations. And yes, to a certain degree, but actually without getting the managers to do it, they're losing that confidence or losing the opportunities to kind of get more confident and build that trust with their team, as it were. And I think I can, probably in my early career, was like, okay, I'll do it for you, which obviously isn't solving the problem because you think, well, let me do it. I can do it quicker. We can get it sorted and we can find, a happy medium, as it were, or, a content employee. But I think that's where the line managers are missing out on those opportunities of dealing with their own issues with their own people.
They are. And I think even worse is, okay, a manager coming to you, you've got the skill set, you've got the confidence, but I think even worse than not training managers, we don't train HR. So a manager, rightly so, thinks that HR will be the expert in this area and will be able to guide them on how to have these conversations. And often the HR person, again, not their fault, but through the HR curriculum, we don't teach this. What we teach is employee problem, grievance, employee not performing, disciplinary, and they're not the answers.
And it's interesting. I thought a lot about that because obviously we've had numerous conversations around everything then gets focused on a policy, doesn't it? Actually, let's look past the policy and what else we can do. So I had another example where a team member came to my HR advisor actually and said, I want to raise a grievance. I feel like I've been bullied. I've not been listened to. And this is with their peers. And straight away, it's like it's a grievance. It's like, well, hold on. Let's have a think about, is it a grievance? I think what was worse was they'd already been to their line manager. They said, definitely it's a grievance. It kind of, prepped it up a little bit. Yeah, go to HR, put it in writing. And then it came to me and I'm like, let's just have a conversation. Tell me why you're aggrieved. Let me understand why you think it's a grievance. I think in the emotion of what had happened, it was bullying and all these other terms that they had referred to. And then they had some time to calm down. They thought about the conversation. They came back and said, actually, I don't think it's bullying, but I am upset about how I was treated. But I think the first instinct was, let's go straight for the grievance policy. Let's make it informal, formal. What does that look like? With actually taking the context out of what actually is the root cause of the issue. And does it have to be an actual policy that we need to follow? Which, if I think about all my years in HR, it's always been referred to as, is it a grievance, formal or informal? Don't touch it unless we work out which one it is.
No, I think it's one of the biggest issues that we have in UK industry. That whole, I always say to people, what does your perfect grievance policy look like?
Right.
And they'll start to say to me, oh, well, it should have this in it and it should have this. And actually, no, it should look like it should have 6 inches of dust on it, cobwebs around it, because you've never needed to use your formal grievance policy. And that whole, is it a grievance or is it not? It kind of is, because somebody's aggrieved. Somebody's psyched off about something. They're aggrieved. But it doesn't mean that as soon as you go into a formal process, like I mentioned about positions earlier, people will just go into, you've done this to me. No, I haven't. And that, that poor person who's accused of bullying or whatever it is, their job's on the line.
100%.
That is a serious accusation. And never in a grievance do they start talking about, I've never seen a grievance where somebody will say, do you know what, I really like this about the person and they're really good at this and they're great for this, but this is a bit of an issue. It's always, here are all the issues that I can think of since 1976. I'll plug it into AI. That'll come up with even more things. And that's and we stick that in. And that poor person reading that, and it just drives people so far apart.
I always find it interesting when I say, what's the outcome to this? Like, what are you looking for? I hear that you're aggrieved, that you're not happy, but ultimately, what do you want us to do as a business? I think that's always quite a good stopping point for them to kind of think about, well, what am I looking for? Because it doesn't have to be a grievance. Is it a conversation? Let's explain it a little bit more, because don't get me wrong, some people are like, yeah, I want to do a grievance. You know, that's when they're in the bulk of that emotion.
Yeah.
But I think 9 times out of 10, when you say to them, what are you looking for? What would you like us to do? It's to get them to stop and think about, well, actually, what do I need you to do?
Yeah.
Because like you said, you go from a grievance and potentially you're accused of bullying, that leads to a disciplinary, and potentially someone's lost their job. So I think, you know, you have to be really sure that you understand what that means, and as a business, what we're able to do, which is always interesting.
No, it's very true, and that question is something that we ask in mediation all the time, and I think the best that a lot of people do in the grievance process is tick the box of ask that question once. You know, what do you want as an outcome? I want them sacked.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go into the formal grievance thing, because they're either going to get sacked or they're not.
Yeah.
Sometimes in a mediation, that conversation might take an hour just on that.
Yeah.
I sound like a Spice Girl when I'm in mediations, because I'm like, what do you want? What do you really, really want? I don't do the ziggy get up.
No.
but it, you know, when somebody says, I want them sacked, you know, that's an interesting conversation, because I'll often go into, wow, you know, so you want them to lose their livelihood. You want them to probably not be able to afford to feed the kids, lose the house, things like that. And when people really think about it, they'll often say, well, no, I won't wish that on anybody.
No.
But I really want them to understand what they're doing to me, how they're making me feel.
Yeah.
Right. So that's what you really, really want. Yeah. And often and then, like you say, it then softens from, you know, bullying down to, it feels like they're treating me differently. So often victimization and whatever, but it's often this is how they're making me feel.
Yeah.
And that's a great conversation to be had.
Yeah.
Because once you can turn that conversation to, I want to feel differently, and let's understand how we're doing things, they can have a really good conversation, and they can work it out. So that's all for me at that informal stage of a grievance process.
Yeah.
And I always say to people, you should see that going from informal to formal should be this huge barrier.
Yeah.
That you're going to do everything possible to not cross that barrier. Everyone's got a right to a formal grievance.
Yeah.
But in my experience, 99.99% of the time, it's not needed.
Not needed at all. So without a grievance policy, then you're saying, you know, you should have all this dust on it. You shouldn't use it. What would you recommend businesses did have then?
Well, I mean, a lot of people, a lot of mediators would say we need to change policies. I'm not a big advocate of that, really. Although I think as you evolve things, then you do start to call them resolution policies and things like that. But you know, I get people ringing me saying, I hear you talk, because I have this saying, revolution to resolution, and they'll often talk to me about, I've heard you talking about resolution policies. Could you write us one? And I'm like, yeah, I can write you a resolution policy, and I'll charge you a fortune for it.
Right.
And it'll make no difference whatsoever.
Yeah.
Because it's not about the policy. It's about the ability to have conversations.
Yeah.
So when I was a factory manager in the food industry, I started as a HR manager and then moved into being a factory manager. And the reason I moved to that business was it had, hold your breath, on average, 12 grievances per week.
Per week?
Per week.
12?
12 per week.
What's the size of the business?
At the time, only about 500 employees. So on average, more than one grievance per year per person.
Wow.
And that's the reason I moved there, because the HR director, a guy called Steve Jones, he called me, and he knew I always describe myself as allergic to grievances.
Right.
And he told me about this site. So 12 grievances a week. They went on strike 4 or 5 times a year.
Right.
And it was just this hotbed of the personnel, as it was, team had panic buttons under the desk. So if people didn't like the outcome of a grievance, it got a little bit physical, and security were called in. So just and he called me, and he knew my view on grievances, and he said, "Do you fancy?" I'm like, "Oh God, do I fancy?"
I was going to say, that's a good challenge in itself, no?
And when I joined there, you know, some of the, as I say, it was still personnel then. Some of the HR team, they loved grievances.
Right.
that they loved the fact that they could go in and take notes and hear this juicy gossip and all this lot. Just type it up. But there was no real, that's all they had to do, type up an outcome. So when I came in saying, we ain't going to be having grievances, formal grievances, some of them left. Some of them needed to leave. And that's fine. They went elsewhere to type up grievances. But actually, the fundamental shift was not teaching them to be mediators, but teaching them some of the skills that we use as mediators. To give them the confidence for them to be able to have conversations, but to then coach managers to be able to have conversations. And we vastly reduced that number of grievances. But as HR, I only had an element of control over that, because obviously the factory managers were sort of running the show. But then I'd always said I wanted to do an operational role, sort of meaning a supervisor on the line for a couple of weeks. But to cut a long story short, my boss merged 2 factories and put one bigger factory manager role in. And he said, you wanted to get some operational experience. I want you to do that job.
Oh, wow.
He asked me on a Friday and said, think about it over the weekend, then tell me yes on Monday. So it was scary, but that's what we did. And what he said to me was, don't worry about the technical side. It's people leadership that we need. And so when I then went over to the factory management side, and really scary and hardest job I've ever done, but I had full control over that then. And in the last 15 months there, we had one grievance. We had one formal grievance. And I'm still gutted now that we had a formal grievance.
You would have none.
But there's always somebody who's just wants their day. But that grievance took about 20 minutes. Because my boss looked at what we'd done so far and basically told the employee to stop being silly. But it was still a formal grievance. And it still sort of gets me here. That we still not. But they, the two standard levels of training that I put in for my team of supervisors was NEBOSH manager's health and safety certificate, NEBOSH certificate, which is quite tough from a health and safety perspective. But then mediation skills, not training them as mediators, but mediation type skills. And they were the 2 big catalysts for me in improving safety, but also reducing grievances. And it's not that the issues all went away. But we had the conversations. And they had the confidence to have the conversations, whether it's performance, absence, people having a little spat, whatever it may be, nip it in the bud early. And that, for me, is where you get the massive cultural change. And it's a huge productivity opportunity for, people, not as many people off sick, people a bit happier, people not leaving. But most importantly, not spending months and months and months in grievances. Horrible process.
It's quite negative as well, isn't it, really? Because like you said, no one looks at the positive side of an individual or a situation. It's all based on the negative, which can be quite damning, can't it, really?
Absolutely. Yeah, awful.
So with line managers then, you're talking about mediation skills. What's kind of the core ways, I suppose, they can build up that confidence then to have those conversations?
So the things that we teach people are not rocket science at all. None of it is difficult, but it just takes that, as I say, confidence to be able to have them. So as you'll remember from the training, the first thing we teach people is the importance of getting to know people, because people often just start jobs. And they say, "Oh, I'm Pete. I'm the HR manager, and I'm Anna. I'm the commercial manager." We start talking about HR and commercial and the business and things. And then suddenly, I start hacking you off, and you start hacking me off a bit. So we talk less. We email more. And then we fall out. And then you stick a grievance in against me, and I stick a counter grievance in against you. Then one of us resigns or gets sacked. Then we end up in tribunal. If at the start we just knew each other, because believe it or not, most of the time I'm all right as a person. I know you're lovely all the time. But if we get that foundation of knowing each other, and it's back to what I said earlier, then it's like You don't see me yourself.
Yeah.
What have I hacked you off?
Yeah.
That type of thing. We nip it in the bud.
Yeah.
Job done.
Yeah.
So it's things like that, but it's things like, you know, obviously communication skills, questioning, things like that. But it's all really about giving them the confidence to just be able to spend that time with people and understand those. When I talk about interests, it doesn't necessarily mean flower, or it might do, but it's really about what matters here.
Yeah.
What matters to those people and getting to know them and what matters to them, because the way you'll react to a situation will be different to the way I'll react to a situation, because you've got different background, you've got different experience, you might have different cultural background, you've got different belief system, and it's just you.
Yeah.
And if I know if I think about my team now, I'll give some people the same message in a different way to others.
Yeah.
Just purely because I know that's how they'd prefer it to be. And I'll put more emphasis on some things than other things for some people. And that's why one policy or one process doesn't fit.
No.
We're all different.
Yeah, absolutely.
Totally different.
And it makes me think about that time element, because if I think about line managers that I've worked with, you know, it's always about time. I haven't got time for that. I'm busy doing emails. I'm busy going to meetings. And I think they lose the focus of, you need to spend time with your team, whether it's on the floor while they're working, doing what they're doing, catch-ups or one-to-ones. I think that's normally the first thing that goes when things become busy, which I think is a real shame, because then you do lose that connection and you lose what's actually happening in your environment. And I think the biggest pushback is that I haven't got time.
It's I mean, there's a couple of things on that. I always smile when people say, because when things have gone really badly and they call us in for mediation, it takes us a day.
Yeah.
We put a day together for a dispute between two people.
Yeah.
People often, I ain't got time. And then I'll say to them, wow, you just spent 6 months going through a whole grievance and everything like that. So you just spent 6 months of your time, but you haven't got a day just to sort it out.
Yeah.
And but I think the biggest reason it's not seen as value add, because they've not experienced the power of having those really good conversations.
Yeah, that's a good point.
When I was at Rolls-Royce, there was a pretty senior manager, actually. He was in the usual, you know, promoted because of technical capabilities, then thrown in the deep end, and he was struggling. He was really, really struggling. But he was just working crazy hours to try and be successful in this job. So he couldn't get in his diary. He was just madly busy, just headless chicken running around. And I kept saying to him, his name was Keith, and I kept saying to him, Keith, look, let's just have an hour. I ain't got an hour. Running around. And I had to almost badger him to, you know, and he had a secretary, so I helped him by getting his secretary to make an hour in his day.
Oh, right, amazing.
And that meeting it'll always stick in my mind, because it was very much.
I kept looking at his watch.
I can't believe we're doing an hour.
Oh, really?
You know, I've got because he's got that factory to run. He's got all that to do and everything.
Yeah.
And it was just very much, just tell me what's important to you.
Yeah.
And he started with, I've got to get them products out. I'm like, no, it's you. What's important?
Yeah.
And eventually he started talking about his family and, you know, and things like that. And I'll often say, I'll start.
Yeah.
Most important to me is my wife, Liz, and my daughter, Millie.
Yeah.
Nothing trumps that.
Yeah.
But work gets in the way sometimes. So you know, he started telling me about all this stuff. And when I was talking to him about, you know, how is that? You working 7 days a week, running around, probably being stressed out your head. How is that fitting with your main interest, which is your family? Well, it's not. It's putting a strain on my mind and all this. And we started having a conversation about what's really important, not the solutions, not because it's much bigger than that, the solutions, but just helping him to reset as regards that time.
Yeah.
When we got towards the hour, he went out to his secretary and said, move that meeting and move that meeting. And we had about a 2.5 hour meeting.
Oh, amazing.
Because he was like, this is helping me.
Yeah.
This is really what I needed. But he couldn't see it.
Yeah.
Because he was totally blinded. And the power of conversation when you've got somebody who's genuinely just confidential, wanting to help, and you're focusing on what's really important. Because widgets out of the door are important, but they're not as important as a lot of other things.
That brings us to the end of part 1 with Pete Colby. I really hope this episode has helped you think about why workplace conflict is something managers need to understand and respond to earlier, and why listening, curiosity, and early conversations can make such a difference. In part 2, Pete and I move into mediation, what it is, what it isn't, and how it can support people when relationships at work have become difficult or stuck. I'll pop Pete's contact details and useful links in the show notes so you can connect with him and find out more. You can also find my details there too, including my LinkedIn and The People Expert, where I share practical HR, coaching, mediation and leadership support for managers and organisations. If this episode has been useful, please like, follow, subscribe and share it with someone who manages people. That small action makes a big difference. And remember, being a great people manager is not about having all the answers. It's about being willing to listen, learn, and support the people around you. Thank you for listening to The Practical People Manager.